Hello, everybody, and welcome to another very special episode of Club Fitting Chronicles. We've had a few special episodes in the last few episodes we recorded, but today we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Adam Porzak. Adam, how are you today?
I'm great, you guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, I mean, it's a pleasure to have you. Gene will tell you more about how he knows Adam and how he kind of helped him in his upbringing. It's a very heartfelt, touching story. We talked about it a little bit before recording. And before we get any further, Gene, how are you today?
I'm doing well after being rear-ended yesterday.
Gene.
Yeah. Arizona drivers are the worst. And it's been proven that many times, and they continue to work at it.
Oh, man.
On
you
the
okay,
off
Gene?
ramp,
No whiplash?
I was sore yesterday, but I did a lot of icing, so I'm good today.
Good.
Ice the elbow a little bit.
You're a tough guy, Gene. I know.
Yep. But so other than that, I was heading to middle school golf practice when I got rear-ended. And so it was like punishment for going to work with middle schoolers. But we made it, and we didn't swing any clubs with them yesterday because I wasn't sure something wasn't going to fall off or not. So anyway, Josh, go right ahead. Josh is out in my backyard again. If you're, he
I
loves
am.
it.
This is
there.
the new recording setup. It is so hot out here. It's 76 degrees and beautiful. Absolutely perfect outside. Couldn't be any happier to be outside, really. No offense to Eugene. Inside is beautiful, but I'd rather be outside. So, Adam, I know we talked a little bit before recording, but let's just get a personal background about who you are for some of our audience members who don't really know who you are. Kind of just give them a rundown.
All right. So, as far as golf's concerned, you started playing golf at a very, very young age. My dad was incredibly influential in that. He played golf all throughout his life. And, at age 2 years old, I had a golf club in my hand, became one of the top for my age at every single age, starting at age 7, 8 years old, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then about 15 years old, broke through and became one of the best in the country. And from about 15 to 18, he reached number one in the country a couple times and was one of the top recruits in my class, played golf at Pepperdine, went over to San Diego State for a year after that, turned professional and had a very, very successful run on the mini tours where my dad said, hey, you're going to stay there before you try to qualify for the PGA Tour. I want you to know what it's like to play for money. And I did that, at age 21 years old, became one of the top players on that tour. And at that time, unfortunately, right when I was going to be heading to the PGA Tour, got all my sponsors in line, all that, I just had a little shoulder injury in the gym, just a torn rotator cuff labrum, set me back a minute. And at that time, I had a newborn baby, started early, and I felt the need to make money and during that time and get something going while my arm was in a sling. And Gene knows me; I'm not the kind of guy to sit back and let things come to me. I'm going to go out and get it myself. And I called my mentor, Todd Soanes, and said, Todd, you're charging this for 45 minutes. Why don't I charge that for 2 hours and take your students on the course and teach them how to play golf, not just golf swing. So I started the on-course playing lesson out in Chicago, up in the North Shore. Would come back to San Diego and teach during the winter months. And very quickly, that became a huge success. I started working with Bo Hostler, was kind of my first breakthrough at age 16, took him to multiple U.S. Opens, got him to number one in the world, won a Western Amateur together. And, at age 23 now, all of a sudden, I'm sitting on PGA Tour driving ranges as the youngest coach to ever work with PGA Tour players. And I just said to myself, as we were just talking about, wait, I can go out to these tour events. I can still go to major championships. And I get to actually go home when I want to. And I actually get to stay in one place and maybe just venture out every once in a while to a tour event and not have to live out of a bag. And for me at the time with a young family, that made sense. And that's basically putting my career in a nutshell right there. And now here I am, 13 years of teaching golf and now even more at this point, 14 years. And Porzak Golf has become a lot bigger than I ever thought it would, to be honest with you. And that's thanks to social media, thanks to YouTube, Instagram, and all these things. But then, of course, what we've been able to do and all the players we've been able to work with. And Josh, we were just talking, one of your best buddies, is a student of mine at ASU. And I've had a very, very fortunate run of teaching many golfers at ASU and schools like Texas, Oklahoma State, a lot of the best schools in the country. And, now have more college players than, anybody out there. So it's pretty special. I love what I do, you guys. I'm very fortunate. And, but maybe we can get into a little bit of how Gene and I know each other, because Gene's played a huge role in my life. And much of who I am today is because of Gene Bonk.
Super interesting story, by the way, for those of you who are about to hear about it. It's super interesting. I love it, actually.
Well, it gets me a little emotional. So start in, Gene.
Yeah. Don't tell all the bad parts.
All the times you had to pull me aside and check me at the door. Yeah. Yeah. So, Gene, do you want to start in on that, or do you want me to give my rendition?
Well, let's see. I had Adam walk through my door as a 6th grader, and he was a kindred spirit because he very analytical. He was a pretty good math student, and he loved sports, and those were two things that I really enjoyed. And then I found out that he was a golfer, and I would bring Adam golf clubs into school and say, Adam, can you take these to, tell me what you think? Because at that time I was still learning what mattered in a golf club. And so I figured, I have a student with a really good golf swing, and I'm going to take advantage and see what he discovers about the golf clubs that I'm giving him. And he would give me reports like, I don't know how far I was hitting it, but I was hitting it into the trees at the end of the range.
Yep. I do remember. I do remember. Well, it's pretty unique for me because, it was a special time in life for me. I had been going to public schools the whole time, and, we were at a private Christian school, and Gene was my homeroom teacher. He was my religion teacher. He was my math teacher. He was my football coach. He was my basketball coach. He was my baseball coach. He was the coach. That was so unique, Gene, to have an opportunity, especially because I was so serious with the game of golf and soccer as well. I mean, we hit every single sport throughout the year. And, how long would those seasons run, Gene? Were they like a month and a half?
8 weeks.
8 weeks.
About 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah.
6 to 8 weeks. Right. Okay. So, I was thinking about that the other day, and I said, what a unique experience, because I was able to play multiple sports with Gene as my head coach. And it was cool because, I was the quarterback of our football team, point guard of the basketball team. Gene and I really hit it off. He knew how much I love sports. He knew how much I love to take charge on the field. And, coming from such an individual sport, he gave me some positions where I could feel like I was the boss out there a little bit. And, he taught me how to throw a spiral still to this day. I have a mean spiral, but let me tell you, Josh, who has a better one is Cameron Sisk from ASU. That kid, my longest time student, has been over a decade with him now. That guy lights it up. He has a great arm. And Gene, he keeps his hand right on top of the laces, right next to his ear, just like you taught me. And man, he slings it. But no, I have some fond memories of my time at Grace Lutheran. That was one of the, I was talking to you guys earlier about how I've had multiple moments and times and periods in my life that have helped shape who I am today. I would tell you that may have been the most influential time in my life. Just before heading to a big public school with 3,900 kids.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun getting to work with you and watch you afterwards.
Well, I appreciate that. And Gene, it was under your watch, actually. I was the 8th grade. I qualified for a junior Ryder Cup team and was the youngest player on my team representing the United States. And, it got pushed back a year because that was in 2001 to 2002 because of September 11th. But, that was at a time where I was with Gene, and Gene was my teacher, and wasn't just a teacher in the classroom, but a teacher in life. And that was what was extra special about Gene. I had Gene, and then I had Todd Sones, and Todd Sones, also, a strong Christian, was a great guy, and just he was like my second father. Ran very parallel to Gene's lessons to me in life. And I felt that was really, really, really cool because I had two really great people who cared about me greatly as a voice besides just my father. My father was and is still my best friend. But let me tell you, you get to a certain age and, the lesson coming from someone else is a little bit more heard than it is coming from dad. And Gene was that to me, as was Todd.
100%. Yep.
And my one claim to fame is I beat Adam straight up in a round of golf.
Yeah, that did
happen. He was in 6th grade.
Yeah.
And
that did happen. That did happen.
And he was devastated.
I'm sure I blamed it on something like the club that Gene gave me or something like that. Gene gave me a wrong club, and it was just, just kidding. Oh, it's funny.
Wow.
Yeah, we go way back.
I just think the whole story of I just think it's unbelievable because if you don't know the story between me and Gene play at the same golf course in Queen Creek that Gabe and I also grew up at in Las Colinas in Queen Creek, Arizona. And one day I just got paired up with Gene randomly, and we were on I think it was hole 13. Was it 13 or 14, Gene?
I think it was 14.
It was 14. That's right. The par 3, and I had a 6-iron in my hand. Now the year prior to that, and this was during COVID, I snapped my 6-iron shaft, and at the time they had a shortage, or I couldn't find a 6-iron length shaft, the shaft that I had at the time. So I was like, not knowing what I was doing, I was like, oh, I'll just put a 7-iron shaft in there. Oh, it's the same thing, right? So I put a 7-iron shaft in there, and then Gene was like, what club is that? And I go, it's my 6-iron. He goes, do you usually hook it this much? I go, no, not primarily.
Josh, you have the voice down.
Yeah. And he goes, well, here, let's take a look at this. And he goes and he puts a little slab of lead tape on there, which first off started my lead tape craze, my trend. And anyway, I hit it straight. I go, wow. And he goes, so you have a 7-iron length shaft in your 6-iron, right? I go, yeah. And he goes, well, you want to know what that does to the club? And that in itself just sparked my whole fascination on clubs and the whole fitting side of it, right? Anyway, like I said, we were talking one day and he brought up, I don't know how it got brought up. I don't remember that part, but he said Adam Porzak, and I go, why? I know Adam. I watch him on Instagram and YouTube, and he also teaches my best friend at ASU, and I was like, how do you know him? And of course, Gene being Gene, he goes, I taught Adam in 6th grade math, and I also taught him how to throw a spiral football. And it was just the most nonchalant statement ever from Gene, and I was just
That's awesome.
I wasn't as much shocked that he knew you and taught you how to throw a spiral football. It's just the fact that golf is such a small world.
Such a small world.
When you get into it, really, I mean, the world is small as it is, but when you get into the golf world, it's incredibly small. And I think it's awesome. Your upbringing as a golfer and who you are as a swing instructor now, and like I said, the success that you've built for yourself is honestly inspiring. And for a lot of people in the audience who are trying to figure out who they are, if you're a little bit in the younger audience like myself and are trying to make their way whatever, as a collegiate golfer or a professional golfer, or even trying to get to be a better golfer, whether you're a 5 handicap wanting to be a scratch golfer or whatever the case is. I mean, it just goes to show what a good work ethic can do for you, and having a belief system and having people such as Gene, like Gene is a mentor to me as well. Gene has taught me a lot about the golf club, and we've been out on the golf course talking a lot about the psychological side of golf, and very grateful for that. So it's very cool to see, the impact that Gene has had on your life too, and I just find it to be very cool. Very surreal.
An impact on my life and an impact on my golf game. ADS Golf, which was his club fitting company that was right there in San Marcos, California.
Which is now in Vista.
Which is now in Vista. Okay. That was my go-to. Gene was my go-to guy all throughout my career. If I needed my clubs tweaked, and it's funny, I was always on staff with either Titleist and Mizuno was kind of my two companies that really, really supported me, no matter what they sent me. I went straight into Gene, and Gene made sure that everything was, where it needed to be.
Yeah.
Then of course, as I, now I'm with Callaway as a teacher. The reason I choose Callaway as a teacher, people always wonder why Callaway. Well, the reason I went with Callaway is because they have something for everyone. They have something for everyone. For a female golfer, for a senior golfer, for the tour player, for any kind of golfer, there is equipment for them. So for me, although I love those Mizuno blades. I thought they were great. There's a very, very select few out there that I would actually say, hey, by the way, go get some Mizuno blades.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. But Gene was great. I mean, everything in my life, whether it was just life, or golf, we were, he and I aligned, and he really helped me in big ways. So forever appreciative of you, Gene.
Just trying to do my part.
You did a big part.
Trying to honor God.
Yes, sir.
So golfers coming to you and you're looking at their swing. And I know you used to have me come in from time to time, or you'd send me a lot of people. I remember when the University of Minnesota girls golf team showed up one day.
Yep.
We can't hit what they fit us for.
That's what happens.
How often do you run into those situations as a teacher? And then from your basic knowledge of what others in the world do in the golf world, how well prepared are most of those teachers to notice, there's maybe something amiss here?
Well, I was very blessed. Not only did I have Eugene, but I had Todd, as I mentioned. And I'll never forget at the age 22, fitting for somebody for clubs. And you throw the tape on the bottom, and you're seeing a tremendous amount of wear on the bottom toe. So what do you think? Make it more upright. Todd looks at me and goes, that guy shouldn't be 2 degrees upright. He goes, send me a video of his swing right now. And I look at it and I go, oh no, I know Todd's already 2 steps ahead of me. Here we go. And the guy's coming out of his posture and has the highest hands at impact you've ever seen. Well, Todd looks at me and goes, you going to fit to that problem? Or are you going to fit him to where he needs to be when he's swinging correctly? And I go, wow. Okay. Yeah. Fit through instruction was what I've always learned. And one thing that, not to bash the general golf teaching population out there, but I would say on the whole, very poorly equipped to be able to identify that. And unfortunately, most fitters will cater to the player's fault. And
Yes.
And that is the biggest problem, and the biggest problem that I have as an instructor. I will not do that. If somebody's coming out of their posture, I will flatten that club and force them to stay in their posture and have lower hands through impact and not come out of it and have higher hands. So, to answer that question, I don't believe there are many out there that have the eye to look at somebody and say, ideally, this is what you should be in. And then also have the eye to say, well, ideally, your swing would look like this, and the club then should be according to that. And that's something that, through Gene, through Todd, and their tutelage, I've been able to then, identify. And of course, now Dad and I were doing the math on this. Pretty crazy. I teach an insane amount of hours. I've crossed the line. I've crossed over 50,000 hours of teaching now. And, it's
Wow.
that's pretty heavy at 37 years old.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I can see it just like that, you guys. I mean, I can see it just like that. I don't need a video. I don't need anything. You see somebody setting up and you look at that club and the way it sits on the ground and you're just like, oh no, all that you have to do wrong to get the right result in this golf swing is just, it's not good. And, and that's what I just said is the key. How many people out there are having to do the wrong thing to get the right result? And one of the things that's incredibly important, especially looking at younger golfers, Josh, throughout, you're not too far removed from this, but, from age 10 to age 22, when guys are growing like a weed, my dad had me in to get fit with Gene or get my clubs checked every 6 months. There's a reason besides my technique and my ability why I was one of the top golfers in the country. My dad was on top of it. And, now my dad is, you're going to love this, Gene. He's the parental coach, the parental guidance coach for Porzak Golf. He does he organizes their fittings. He organizes their college recruiting process and does their resumes for them, gets the kids a tournament schedule, all the things that, that many of the parents are just not educated about. And it's not their fault. They want the best for their kids. Right. But my big recommendation for young golfers, and not just young golfers, we'll talk about the pros in a second, because I have incredible experiences for you guys with pros at major championships too, that you'd be like, you got to be kidding me. Well, here's the young ones. The young ones first, they need to get fit all the time. They're growing They're growing like crazy. Arm length changing, heights changing. You got to get them in there at a minimum. Strengths changing every 6 months. They need to get in there and get the clubs checked if they're a serious golfer. Now let's talk about our pros. All the travel, the change in temperature, clubs in the car, clubs out of the car. How about you guys out in Arizona? Leave those clubs in the car for a little bit and watch what happens.
No, thank you. No leaving it in the garage or the car.
Yes.
That's a big no-no.
Don't do that, guys. So here's what happens. I'm out in the range with Bo Hossler at a U.S. Open. He's hitting the ball beautiful. 6-iron's hooking like crazy. Freaking out, looking at me. Why is a 6-iron doing that? I'm like, well, the swing looks the same. Maybe it's too upright. Sure enough, they take it in the truck. The thing's 2.5 degrees more upright than every single club in his bag. And he just had him checked a week before. So,
oh my God.
There's so many times, you guys, where my dad and I were always the believer of, hey, Indian, not the arrow. Indian, not the arrow. Okay. Always, take ownership. But you guys, I've been around it way too much. It's oftentimes the arrow. Yeah. And for an amateur golfer, guys, I would go as far as saying of 10 people that show up to my lesson tee, I would say we're lucky to find one that actually has clubs fit to them.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a little story. I was playing golf the other day, and Duke, he was going to be listening, and he was, "Are you going to tell on me?" Yep. He came over to the house yesterday or Monday. He wanted to explore doing something with his irons. He was like, I should be way better than I am, and I can't hit these. I hit one good shot in the last 2 rounds. And so I'm measuring, and he's a little taller than I am, and his clubs are a half an inch shorter than mine. And his swing weight is C3 on some of his irons, C4 on a couple others. And once he has a couple of sets of clubs he brought to me. I sometimes play with these, sometimes play with these, and they were pings, since Josh has his hat on. One was 4 degrees flat, one set. The other set was 3 degrees upright.
Oh my gosh. Oh, the amount of difference you have to make in your swing to make that work out.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like, I see, and I'm sure you see this often, the guy with the, it says it's a 9-degree driver, but really it's 13 degrees, 4 degrees
Gene,
open.
I learned that from you, and I have all my tour players check that, and it's unbelievable how many times you guys who are getting paid by these companies for a living have to check it. And you know what's crazy? Those degrees are not even close.
No.
With the biggest companies in the world.
Yep.
Yep. Unbelievable.
And you get the guys with the worst swings in the world playing 45 and 3/4 inch long drivers. And the guys on tour, I don't know what Bo plays, but I'm going to guess most of them are around 44 and a half.
Yeah, most of them are right there. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I wonder why they don't play 1.25 inches longer if you could hit it further that way. Well, it's because you don't hit it further. You hit it more offline more often.
That's exactly right.
And, so...
Or hit the center of the face less, then there you go.
But see, Absolutely. You don't wear out the club then.
Yeah.
And so you can keep it much longer.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks barely used.
Barely used. Easy to resell.
Exactly. It just, it becomes, you mentioned the Indian, not the arrow. And my favorite thing was, what you call an Indian after 3 weeks with bad arrows? A vegan.
I'm going to use that one. That's a good one, Gene.
But, it's amazing to me. And it's, I knew you saw those same things because I sat back there when you were giving, lessons, and you'd call me in and I'd look through the bag, and, you got everything is a 44-gram shaft.
Right.
And, everything was, to make up for the swing weight, everything is an inch long. And I can't hit this, but so many people believe the thing coming out of the factory will make the difference.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we always see. And, guys, I will tell you this, the most common thing that I see, besides, putting, typically the putter length is just always wrong. Nobody ever has the right putter length, and I always tell people,
from my studies, I have a number. What would you say the average golfer should probably be putting with?
I'll just throw this out there. 35 inches is the standard in the industry because our tour bags are 34 and a half inches tall. So how many putters are we going to sell if they're underneath the lip of the tour bag? The tour bag is the defining factor as to why a putter is 35 inches. Okay. I'm like 5'7.5", right? So for me, I putt with a 32 and a quarter inch putter, like Luke, very close to Luke Donald, right? Most guys who are 5'10", 5'11" should fit into a 33 and a half inch putter. I mean, and 34 is right about 6 feet, 6'1", and 35 doesn't really get till you're 6'2", 6'3". So, of course, there's outliers there with people's arm length and leg length. They change drastically. But really, it's important to understand that you have to be a very tall individual to fit into a 35-inch putter and truly have the correct setup. The most common thing that I see in the irons, more than any, is clubs that are too upright. Simply because everybody comes out of their posture at impact. They stand up, the hands get high, and then the club fitter bends the heck out of those golf clubs to cater to them coming out of their posture. And unfortunately, now what are they doing? They just had an invite to come out of their posture more. And that's just
when they don't, it doesn't work out.
Absolutely. So, it's, I think I even read this at one point. Arnold Palmer had an 8-iron that was like something like 4 or 5 degrees flat that he used to practice with just to stay deep in his posture with his butt back and his chest down, hands low, just to be able to hit golf balls with that rather than being forced to come out of it, and I know this all too well, not being a very tall guy, let's be honest, not a short guy. What it comes down to is,
I tower over you only by 2 inches.
Yeah. But the whole point being, it's very, very, I was very sensitive to that. But I look at my players, you guys, and I'm telling you, people show up with clubs that are much too upright for them. And yes. And then I would say after upright irons, putter length, those two things are just two things I see that are consistently wrong in almost everybody's bag.
Right.
How about this? Because this is the other new thing in golf. And part of the philosophy I totally agree with. You always want people to play with the lightest clubs that they can control.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't want them to use the heaviest thing that they could possibly ever swing.
I 100% agree.
Do you find that a lot of players have tempo problems because most of the major companies make everything super light, but you get your better player and tempo becomes an issue because I got nothing to slow me down?
100%, Gene. I think here's the thing. Rhythm is the glue that holds the golf swing together. Okay. There's a pace that everybody should be swinging, that each individual should swing with to hold their golf swing together. Your clubs play a huge role in being able to do that. For young juniors, you see a lot of sledgehammers out there. And just, the club, as my dad said, the club swings them, they don't swing the club.
Yep.
That's a very common thing that I see. So to answer your question simply, Gene, yes. And I would tell you guys, just facts here. Poor equipment and not just poor equipment, it could be very good equipment, just poorly fit,
Right.
Yeah.
is the number one cause to imperfections in the golf swing. A poor setup, a poor swing, and people catering to what, because it's funny. There's things that we do in a swing that it's really not a flaw. It's your athletic response to what the flaw is steps prior to that. Okay.
Yeah.
So whether that be something in your swing or your setup or just your golf club altogether, if the golf club doesn't fit you right, well, guess what? Your setup's not going to be correct. Your swing as a result isn't going to be correct, and you're going to be forced to do things that aren't right to get the right result. And you can't blame yourself. You're making an athletic response to that. And that's really, you're dependent upon that. You're dependent upon that flaw now that a coach is going to look at and go, oh, you're doing this wrong. You're standing up out of it or whatever it is. Right. And really it's because I'm forced to, because of the club I have in my hands. Right. So that's, it's incredibly important that, hopefully what happens here as a result of us all talking, that the avid golfer goes out and says, hold on a second here. I'm going to find the best club fitter around, and I'm really going to get fit the right way. And I'm going to bring to them their attention some of these things that we're talking about. And, one thing that I was real big on, Gene, that you did well with me, it wasn't always what the computer says is best for you. You have to sit there and feel it. You have to sit there and go through a couple clubs. We would go through shafts, go through clubs and pair them together, and you just had to find that
Play
match
with the swing weight.
Absolutely. You had to find what felt good to you, and I don't care. I was the guy who I had a definitive feel that, if the computer told me I was getting more out of this and I felt that I felt more comfortable with that, I'm picking that all day long. And that's just me. And you know what, and that was, oftentimes aligned with what the computer said, but there are times where, you just have to feel it out and and look down and what looks best to you, what feels best in your hands. What do you feel more in control of? I talk about with my players, club face awareness. A lot of times people can't feel the club face because they don't have a club that fits them. The weight's off, right? So as a result, you're just, the club's free floating around you and drifting and you have no idea where it's at. Well, it's tough to smack up against that wall, that imaginary wall in the back of the ball that's perpendicular to your target every time.
Well, that's, I am a student of Adam Porzak golf, and I watch some videos and sometimes just to reminisce about him calling signals out on the football field. But most of the time to say, okay, what am I not thinking of that I should be doing? Oh, yeah, I'm not posting that way. Or, oh, you're not bumping your stupid hip or whatever the issue is. The swing weight on my 6-iron, and my clubs are moment of inertia weighted, so it gradually gets higher throughout the set. My 6-iron is D4.5, and I'm using a 85-gram shaft in it. And that gives me, I can tell you where that face is. When I'm taking the club back, when I get up to the top, I feel that, and then it's just pull the pin and it goes.
Well, Gene, one of the first things that we worked on when we first started actually diving deep into my bag was my irons, because I couldn't hit a green in regulation, and it wasn't my swing. I was going to a swing coach. I was doing everything I could do. And these were stock clubs out of the factory. And I'm not going to lie, they were Ping I-500 irons. I love the feel of them. But, everybody would say, oh, there's it has a hot face. You catch it on the hot spot of the face. It's like, well, no, I don't think it's that, because I hit in the center on that one. It's, why when I hit in the center and it's going left, why does it feel that way? Why is it doing this? As soon as we, put weight on my irons and moment of inertia weighted them, I could actually feel the club head and where the club face was at in relation to where, I was in my swing, but also just having an understanding of what my preferences are as far as weight goes, because I don't like it too heavy. I don't like it too light. I like feeling a lot of the weight in the club head, just so I could have that awareness of the club face.
So you guys, for example, a few years back, about 5-6 years ago, would anybody at the time when Ian Poulter was playing his best golf would have said, hey, a 50-gram driver shaft will be good for you? No, nobody would have said that. But you know what he did? Getting up there in the years, watching the other guys pound it past him. He went to a 50-gram driver shaft, picked up 15, 20 yards because he could swing it faster, felt more in control, won on tour that way, So it was, had a great season, and I think that that's important to understand is, it's not about always what the textbook says. It's about how you feel and what you feel. And feeling the face is huge. As far as the golf swing, technically speaking, a player who has the right equipment, who can't feel the club face, I would call them disconnected. You're using your arms and hands independently from your body. When your body is in control of your arms and hands and moving your arms and hands to the top, you'll have a better awareness of the club face. But to our point here, regardless of what I teach and regardless of connection and the perfect swing and swinging with the path to the least amount of manipulation, right? That's what I always preach. How do we put it? You're set up in a spot that promotes the proper turn. How do we put you in a position at the top that requires the least amount of manipulation with your body and hands coming down? The things that get in the way of that are 100% equipment. People hit incorrectly, the weight of the club being wrong, the shaft not being the right flex, the lie angle being off, or just simply, like my business partner's a crack up. His father was he always liked nice things. He was a 13 handicap playing with Mizuno MP14s. when Mizuno was going to discontinue those, he bought like 4 more sets and he played them his whole life. And he always said, well, I just don't care. I just like the way they look. Well,
I was just going to bring that up. Trends and stuff. That's like, for example, the Ricky Fowler putter that everybody's putting with. Some of the people don't actually know why Ricky was actually using that thing.
Right.
And that's a different length putter. That goes back to what we were talking about putters. That's a different length putter. Way too long for some of these people who are using it, but it's one of those things. It's a trend. It looks cool, and people love the way it looks on TV. But as soon as they get in their hands, they can't get a feel of it.
You'll putt just like him.
Yeah, but you'll putt
it's guaranteed.
Just like him. Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully not a couple years ago, like him a couple years ago.
Right.
But yeah, no, that just goes to your point. I mean, a lot of these people, especially buddies of mine, and I've been, I'm guilty of it too. Stuff looks cool. Stuff looks cool. I mean, it's like, I want that shiny Titleist 3-wood. Yeah, I want that, really cool matte finish wedges. I want this, that, and the other. It looks cool. It looks awesome. But at the end of the day, you see it online and you window shop and you actually pull the trigger and buy it. And then when you actually get it in your hands, it's a completely different thing.
And that's why there's second swing golf.
Just remember, guys, and this is the thing that for our listeners, that the club head's the car frame. The engine is the shaft. The engine is the shaft. And
I love that analogy.
And it's just, no matter what you like to look at, okay, you like to look at the blade, you like to look at the cavity back, you like to look at, game improvement, whatever it is. Just make sure that shaft fits you. And I would then go as far as then saying, make sure your lie angles are correct. And when I say correct, not just catering to your flaw, but where you ideally want to be at impact in your swing. And I would find that most people would be underneath, like a little flatter than they are fit for.
Well, and it depends too on the club manufacturer, because of course there is no standard. So everyone has their own standard of where we're starting from. And then you still have the club itself, which isn't going to be on that standard mark most of the time.
Right.
The thing that I used to encourage golfers, I am not going to touch your club to bend it until you have at least played 5, maybe 6 or 7 rounds. And then I want you to give me feedback. What is happening out on the golf course? Am I, I'm always missing it 5 yards right from 100 yards, or 5 feet right from 100 yards, or 10 feet left from 100 yards, or I could go both ways. Because if you're going both ways, I'm not bending it.
Right, exactly.
And if you are going one way, I might still not be bending it. It depends on the why. You might want to go and work with Adam because, this is what I'm noticing. You're coming out of your posture and it says it should be more upright, but there's no reason to make it more upright because that will just encourage you to do the same wrong thing.
Exactly right. Very,
And
very, very important message there.
I have athletic director at the school that I'm teaching part-time at. I'm looking at her clubs, and she went to one of those Phoenix area companies that have 3 letters in their name. And her clubs, she comes a little bit, she comes out of her posture a little bit and comes a little bit from the outside to the inside. And so what are her clubs? 4.5 degrees upright.
Unbelievable.
I mean, you guys, like, it drives me nuts. I have a good buddy over here who was getting ready for Abandoned Dunes trip. He took one of my big clinics this last week. And here's the worst part too. After getting fit at a very highly renowned place, who I won't mention, but a very, very top place that most people go to, clubs hadn't been hit that much. Wasn't keeping him in the garage, wasn't keeping him in the car. Brought him inside with him all the time. 2.5 upright, 1 upright. One was standard.
Oh, I'm sure it was that
other
way
one was
from the
2 degrees
factory.
upright. I mean, it's just, there was just no consistency across the board. And, you swing the same way with each club, you're going to get different results.
Yep. I don't know if you, now you were too young, the head pro many years ago out at Palo Mesa. He was a left-hander, Dana. And I think you were probably still in elementary school or junior high at the time. And he was playing Hogan's, and he got his gold certificate with all the numbers on it. And he calls me up from the driving range. I can't hit these. Come and visit me.
Yeah.
And I had just opened up my first business, and so I drive out to Palo Mesa. His 9-iron was 8 degrees strong, 5 degrees flat. His 8-iron was the same.
How far right was he hitting those?
It was like, I can't keep it on the planet.
Yeah, no chance.
And of course, negative bounce. Because the thing 8 degrees strong.
Oh man, that's just brutal. That's brutal.
And it was fresh out of the box.
That's just unbelievable. And hey, I think this is an important one too. Okay, this is an important one for our listeners here. If you're seeing big hooks, something to check for. The lie angle could be way too upright. If you're seeing with good swings, you just can't get it to turn over. It just doesn't go straight. It goes way right. It could be too flat. Flat typically leads to right. Upright leads to left for a right-handed golfer. And I think that's important, for our listener to know that, because you want to, the goal here is to educate the listeners to help them play better golf. This is the world's greatest game. I mean, it's just the best. And, all I ever am trying to do with my job is, just promote that and just help people enjoy this game even more than they do. And the one way to enjoy it more is to play better. Right. So,
yeah. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to our last podcast with Doug. He was a former NFL quarterback, so that's, you two have an affinity for one another.
Yep. Thanks, Gene, for putting me in that category.
He was a starter in college. You were a starter also.
Can throw a mean spiral.
It's just a really good 8th grade starter. Yes.
But the thing that he was just frustrated with at first was how stinking hard this game is. He said, he said, I can hit a net from 40 yards away with a football. He said, but that's what became why he loved the game. Just how challenging it is. And then you throw in really lousy fitting equipment.
Yeah, it's just,
and that
just becomes unfair at that point.
Every time I go out to play and I see something, I see, the guy who has, jumbo grips, 46-inch long driver, 50-gram shaft. You can't feel the head. The face is 5 degrees open, and he's just getting madder and madder because he's hit the 3rd house in a row. and it's like, you can't get mad because it's not your fault.
Right.
You have to do so many wrong things
Yes.
in order for you to hit the ball straight.
That's the big message here is it's a lot of stuff. I mean, think about if I sat in that driving range at the US Open with Bo and he made the cut that week and was really one of the higher, he was up there in ball striking, put it that way. He's really high in ball striking statistics that week. What would have happened if I just sat there and messed around with his golf swing more to get that 6-iron to just somehow cut a yard to the right? What he would have had to do in order to create that would have been detrimental to the rest of the bag then. And that's where, to my dad's point, we always were big on India, not the arrow, because we like to take ownership and we like to make sure that we always, hold ourselves accountable. But one thing that I do appreciate about my father, my dad would, if I had a club that wasn't working or things weren't going, he would drive over to Gene's so quickly and have those clubs checked just like that. There was no questions asked. It was that day. He would take them out of my hands and say, hey, go hit the putting green, go chip. I'm taking the clubs in. We're getting them checked. And you know what's funny? Like 9 times out of 10, there was something wrong with them. Something wrong, a lot of travel, a lot of heat, a lot of whatever, the change in temperatures, whatever it is, hitting them a lot, just being a range rat and hitting mats or, they're going to change, you guys. They're going to change. And hey, let me tell you a story real quick. This is a big one these days, and I'm not going to call out too many companies here, but they're trying to make that face as thin as possible to get as much speed off that ball speed as possible. And, I'm having players show up to tournaments with cracked driver faces and drivers that are cracked behind the face. Guys, cracked behind the face. Let me tell you right now, Cameron Sisk, I'll be honest with you. One of the best ball strikers I've ever seen in my life. Kid's just a gem. Great, great young American player to root for. ASU grad, one of the top players there. All-American. He went to the Farmers Insurance Open, got an exemption into his hometown event. Week before, his driver's just is tumbling left, just off the planet, like knuckleballs. And I'm looking at the swing going, there is just nothing about that golf swing that says that. So finally I told him, he's at the Bird at ASU. And I told him at the practice facility there, and I said, Cam, I need you to go grab whatever other driver you have there. Like whatever other shaft is comparable. I don't care what company it is. Pull it out on the driving range and just hit a couple for me. Calls me in 2 minutes. He goes, dude, I'm hitting them all dead straight. And I go, let me tell you right now, bud, you need to make a change here. You need to call the company. There's something wrong with the face of that driver, whether it has a dent in it, whether it's cracked. And sure enough, a crack behind the face that you couldn't even see that was making the ball dive out of the air. And you guys, you know how many fairways at the Farmers Insurance he missed by like a foot in that 6-inch wet rough that we just had all the rains, and he was sniffing the cut line the whole week. And it was like, it's painful, but it's a real issue. I have a boy, Mason Green, who plays at UCLA. You guys, how about this one? You guys would have fun with this one. Some of the fastest ball speed you could ever imagine. I mean, the guy swings about 130 miles per hour, can get the ball speed over 200. He can get it up to 206, you guys. And he cruises around 190.
And goes through a driver once a week. Literally cracks a face every other week. And it's just so annoying because, as a golfer who, Gene, you know how I was, you got a club in my hand and I wore that club into the ground. I mean, that club, you gave me something else that was 1 gram different. I would feel that right away and know that this is not my club. You could make it the exact same, look the same. It didn't feel the same, and nor did it look the same to me. I remember the companies would send me 2 sets all the time. When I got really good, they started sending me 2 sets and I'd look down and go, they're different. And they're like, no, they're spec'd exactly the same. Like, no, they're not. They're different. And they couldn't figure out what was different about them, but I just knew they didn't feel the same. Well, imagine what it's like for these boys now having to change their, a driver, such a crucial club in the bag too, every single week. It's not easy. It's not easy. He needs to look for a face with no score lines.
With no score lines?
No score lines. Because
tell me about that.
That score line is thinning out the face. Well, the score line is going to thin out the face a little bit. So it's going to make it a little bit more susceptible. So looking for something, SMT, I don't know if they're even still in existence. They used to make driver faces with no score lines. Okay.
Is that something a brand like Callaway TaylorMade can do?
I don't know if they can do that. I mean, at ADS Golf, we had made a driver, and
you guys did. I remember that.
Printed face. That was only $750 to 3D print it. And then you still had to have the shell and have somebody else who could weld it together and put all that stuff together. But that would be just a starting point. Is just starting to look, have them searching online or something with minimal, because the more score lines you have, you're just working on the integrity of the face.
Well, Gene, I have a question. What is your opinion on TaylorMade's carbon face? Because I know it's a little bit more of a, actually I say, kind of new thing that they've been testing out the last couple of years in their model drivers. Now,
my only concern there is the way it's adhered to. It's a glue.
Right,
it's not going to be welded, so a weld is going to be a much stronger bond than a glue, and I just don't know how that would react.
Which is why I asked, right?
Yeah, how that would react to somebody swinging, 120 plus miles an hour.
Yeah,
on a regular basis.
It's my number one of my students. I'll just give the facts. It's just the facts. I'm not trying to bash the company.
Yep.
I have a lot of players who play TaylorMade, and I love the company. It's a great company, but you know what? Mm-hmm. It's the most cracked face driver of any company that I do.
I know a lot of people who are cracking those faces like crazy. A lot of guys who not those crazy amount of numbers. I mean, that's fast. I mean, those kids are bombing it.
They're hitting it hard. I mean, you guys, it's unbelievable. My dad even said this the other day. My dad was, just over at Palma Valley for a college event that was here. He was going out and supporting some of my players, which was awesome. And he says, Adam, the speed at which these kids are now swinging is just unbelievable. So you can't fault the club manufacturers so much for this because they're trying to maximize what these kids can produce legally with the way they make the head. But I will say, it's you swing quick, and guess what? Be prepared to go through a few drivers. Now, one thing that the companies do very well, and this is where I do applaud the companies, they're very, very good about sending that in and getting one right back to you. Now, for a world-class player, somebody who's trying to be very consistent, it's tough because, as we said, you're not always receiving exactly what you need. These players have the luxury of staying at the Kingdom, of staying at Eli Cowie Performance Center and hitting numerous clubs until one fits their eye and works, and that's a blessing to be able to do that. Just you're at the mercy of what they send you back afterwards. And to Gene's point, not a lot of times they're not always fitted to what you need.
Yeah. The other thing to look for, especially like on tour heads, they usually have a CT time on them.
Okay.
A number. Mm-hmm. Look for something in the low 230s, 220, high 220s.
Okay.
Legal limit's 257. And if you're swinging at 130 miles an hour, you don't need a whole extra lot of help from the face.
That makes sense.
But that would, it's going to be a little thicker face just because of the number. Again, you don't want a poorly designed head at 225. That's not the optimal, but there are a lot of times, because I would get guys who'd come in with tour heads and they go, what's this number on top? Is this the serial number? No, that's the CT time. But they're not supposed to do that for any other people because we got in trouble when we wanted to do that with our driver head. But that would be another thing to look for, is just look for something a little lower CT and see if that might last them 2-3 weeks.
Yeah. Give a chance to play two events with it. Yeah, right. No kidding, right? No kidding. No, it is something else. One thing I've had to experience too, guys, is a loss of hearing in my right ear, by the way, because of the fact I watch so many golf balls from the face-on view and the ball leaves on my right ear for a right-handed golfer, and the sound of these club faces hitting the ball with how hard these boys swing leaves my ears ringing sometimes. I have to actually start standing behind players more, or standing at a distance, or even plugging my right ear when I watch my players at the golf ball.
That is ridiculous.
That's what happens after 55,000 hours of instruction. A lot of the guys I work with really hit it hard. So
just think of if the Nike Sasquatch or Square had ever caught on.
Oh man, let me tell you, that was just it was just painful. How loud that thing was.
The sumo.
I was at the range the other day, just walking by, and I heard this crack, and I go, "Who has the Nike?" And sure enough, there it was.
Yep. So
Adam.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, for our listeners, because I know what your fundamentals are, and you kind of mentioned them a little bit. Well, fundamentals that you teach, you encourage, because everybody teaches something a little different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer. For those of you who are listening, I know I don't look 66. I look like 28.
Yes.
But, but I'm still
going 29. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a 2 index because I play once a week. And like one time a month, I get to play twice a week because the prices have gone nuts out here. When I was able to play more regularly, I was 0. I was scratch. I think I had 14 rounds in a row under par. Adam was doing that when he was 12. But
but me, don't forget, you beat him one time in 6 straight.
Yeah, it happened. Exactly.
Let's keep him humble now.
Yep. Yep. So, fundamentals for me, the 3 most important parts of the golf swing: setup, and setup. Setup is absolutely crucial. You talk about feeling the club face throughout your swing. Well, if your grip isn't, good, I mean, that's the connecting point to you in the golf club. You're already going to be forced to doing the wrong thing to get the right result. I find a strong grip and a shut club face to be the leading cause of back pain in golf because of what you have to do in order to hit it straight when you grip it like that. Mm-hmm. So, there's things there. I'm big on the setup, and then you guys know I'm big on connection. Between the body and hands. You keep the club in front of your hands. You keep the hands in front of your body, and I define the center of the body with the sternum. And you keep the hands in front of your sternum, and make sure your body's turn is moving your hands to the top. And really, not to get in too deep. When you're connected, you then can use rotation to square up the club face, and you're not using your hands independently of your body. And that's something that's really important for our students. They work. One of the things that's so great about what we've been able to do for the younger generation and our players, we're not throwing things up against a wall hoping they stick. We work at doing the same thing better and better and better and better. And, one thing I loved when Xander Schauffele won the gold medal, he was, he's a member at our home club here at the Heights Golf Club where I teach out in San Diego. Yep. And he was interviewed and, he was asked. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He was asked and he goes, Xander, all this recent great play, what changed? He started laughing and he goes, what's changed? I've been doing the same thing for 17 years and I finally got good at it. So, it's when you find that go-to guy, go-to gal, and they're teaching you the right thing and it makes sense to your body, makes sense to your mind. You're able to see the results immediately in the lesson and not the typical, you got to give this 3 weeks, no. And then when they're telling you that, by the way, that's just buying themselves time because they don't even believe what they're telling you. Okay. It should change immediately for the better, and it should for everyone. Of course, it's going to be perfected with time, but you should be able to see the results in a positive direction with the right instruction right away. And,
sure.
Through a good setup, through what I call a great set position, which is simply the position you take the club back to, you're using your body's turn to move that position around your body. And as I said, that pure rotation of your body is allowed when connection is there. When you're disconnected, your body has to either stand up, back up, or stall out in order to let the hands catch up. And typically that flips the club in order to catch it up to the body. And there's all your problems, right? Because that club's going through the impact zone like a windshield wiper. Who knows? Is it going to be open? Is it going to be square? Is it going to be closed? And that's the guessing game right there. Yep. So, just that's a little bit of how I teach. And then I also understand that 70% of the score occurs within 70 yards of the green. So our players are awesome around the greens and awesome on the putting green, with 40 to 42% of your score being on the putting green alone.
Yep.
So we just get them dialed in, and then of course, understanding how to practice the right way. Of course, one of the things I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to do, I got my degree in sports psychology. So, I also am, a sports psychologist to most of our team as well. And being able to combine that all into one lesson and being able to really help our players, identify their pre-shot routine that they should carry with them to the next tournament based upon what it is they need to be working on, how they can make it playable. If they have something a little bit more, a little more heavy to work on, which is never that heavy. People who, we don't work on manipulative moves. We work on very simple things that are easy to understand, that quiet the club face around your body. And that's, I think, what's very important. I think that's why we've had a great connection with the golfing public and why the YouTube channel's done so well on Instagram, because it makes sense. We have a lot of people that have gotten a lot better from our teachings across the world that we've never had a chance to put our hands on or talk to, because the message is very clear, very simple, very consistent. And, I always say this, Gene, God made golf the greatest game ever played. You know what? He did not make it that difficult to understand. Okay. My whole point is when you have things that are being talked about in the golf swing that are just throwing you sideways and just like, oh my gosh, what was that? I always say, guys, why make what could be a simple addition problem into a calculus equation? And unfortunately, right now, we are dealing with a generation of instructors that enjoy using big words and lingo that even I don't understand to explain the golf swing. And I sit there and I go, wait, if I don't get that, and I do this every day of my life for 10 hours a day minimum, how the heck is the golfing public going to understand that? I mean, it's just
people make it way too analytical.
Way too analytical. And there's just so much information. It's the information era. You know, there's so many avenues to go get it. And here's the thing. Here I am on YouTube and on Instagram. And man, one of the most dangerous places to go for advice is on YouTube and on Instagram. You know, and we're just happy to be, you know, to bring it to you the right way, the clean way, the way that makes sense to the human mind, and the way that the best who have the least, who are swinging with the least amount of manipulation most repetitively can get it done. And what's great to understand about this, guys, is it's not a method. It's not a method. Nope. You're still matching up what the player needs based upon what they can actually do. But here's the great thing. What we're teaching helps promote your setup, helps promote you turn more. The connection, connection to you, Josh, and connection to you, Gene, it's going to look different because you guys are built differently, but it's still the same idea. The idea, the blueprint works for everyone. Right. And how, you match up with it is my job to make sure I get the most out of each individual person, but the messages remain the same. So that's really it right there. Hey, I want to take a moment though. I want to throw a big shout out right now to golf fans out there, to a local ASU girl who also grew up in Arizona next to you guys out there, Ashley Mene, who's currently a senior on your team and the number one player at ASU. She shot a 69 today at the Augusta Women's Amateur, and she's right in the hunt, a couple shots off the lead. And I think she's in seventh, tied for seventh. So you guys, golf fans out there, Augusta Women's Amateur is going to be on all week. Please root on Ashley Mene. She's an incredible young lady. I had a chance to caddy for her. She made the cut. We were at Augusta just a couple years ago, and she's a special young lady and a great player. So good one to root for this week. That's one right there who swings the least amount of manipulation. She's fantastic.
And, when I'm running across people, that's the number one thing I see. How hard is it to try to square up that club face with your hand, swinging it at 82 miles an hour, and you have a 0-degree error?
Right. That's right. That's exactly right.
And it's like, why are you trying to do that?
Right.
Isn't that how everyone does it? Not anyone who's good.
Yeah, exactly right. That's right. No, it's cool. It's good stuff.
I love the whole philosophy of and Gene, we've talked about this too. You were one of the first people to tell me, and it really made sense, was golfers are more consistent than they really are, whether their swing is bad on paper, whatever they think it's bad, or whatever the case is, they're making a repetitive movement.
Yes.
Now, and Adam, you said the whole consistent setup creates consistent results, and I love that, and I believe in that, and I think that is helped through the proper equipment. If you have the proper equipment and you're getting consistency in the club itself, and you have that consistent setup, you will get more consistent results. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, if there's two things to take away from this today to immediately help your game, you go and you find good and quality instruction, you set up properly, or you just go to Porzak Golf YouTube or my Instagram and just type in setup. And we give you checkpoints that are easy to understand, that truly lead to the body's ability to make a nice clean turn, pain-free for all ages. The most efficient way to turn and burn, and it's no argument there. It is. And here's what I would tell you. You get a great setup, and then you go get your clubs checked. and make sure your clubs are fit according to what you need, your goals are with your golf swing. Having a great consistent setup, having a consistent set of golf clubs, man, so much has just leaned in your favor now to be able to play the best golf of your life. And that's something that I would take away if I were a listener from this. I'd be saying, hey, fundamentally, I'm going to go build just an awesome setup. I'm going to understand playing golf underneath myself and not around myself. That's a big key. Playing golf underneath you and not around you. I explain that a lot in my videos. You're going to you're playing golf underneath you. You're properly tilted over the golf ball. The path of your swing is going to be straighter, longer. The club face is going to be square to the target a lot longer through the hitting zone. You're sitting back on your heels. You're too upright. You're playing golf around you. It's going to be a windshield wiper around you. Okay. It's just the facts. It is what it is. So, there's so many people that just get better, just not from even moving their swing around. It's just moving their setup in the right position, taking a hold of the grip the right way. You open up your right hand, it matches the club face. Open up your left hand, the back of your left hand matches the club face for a right-handed golfer. And that's the first step in having club face awareness. Having those simple checkpoints, like understanding the crease between your index finger and thumb on your trail hand should be pointed up the inside of your arm towards your pec or your right shoulder for a right-handed golfer. The left hand for a right-handed golfer should be, two knuckles when you're looking down visually for a neutral grip. There's some outliers to that. People do have arms that hang naturally in their sockets differently, and then they could be matching up with a little weaker grip or a slightly stronger one. But then there's little things that we change as a result of that in your swing to make it match up and be square through impact. So, there's just things to know about the game that are actually not that complicated, very simple with the right instruction and once again, the right equipment.
And touching off of what your analogy with down the target line longer, I always explain that people complain to me a lot. You're too darn consistent. Isn't it boring? You hit every green today and you didn't miss a fairway.
Old man golf, as some people would say.
Yeah, that's boring. How do you do that? So, the Ferris wheel swing versus a merry-go-round swing. Absolutely. I swing like a Ferris wheel. I'm trying to keep that club going down the target line as long as possible. You swing like a Ferris wheel or a merry-go-round. Who knows where it's going to be? All depends on where you happen to put the ball that time.
Well, Zach's whole swing is based, like you said, swinging around you and swinging underneath you. Creating a bigger arc in the golf swing is crucial. And I love the analogy, like a race car track, or like you said, a merry-go-round or Ferris wheel. Bigger the racetrack, the smaller racetrack, the faster the cars are looking like they're going, but in reality, they're not. And the bigger the racetrack, the more ground they're having to cover, the faster they look they're going. They're slower they look, the faster they're actually going. And it has the same thing with the arc and the golf swing. It's the bigger the arc, the more effortless power you're going to have. And it's like, I see that all the time with people. And you, Gene, you create a wide arc and you hit it straight down the fairway. And people get pissed at you for doing it, but it looks effortless. You people, oh, that looks so effortless. You create so much effortless power, and a lot of people get hung up on that, and there's a lot of inconsistencies there. But yeah,
or just completely lose all your speed, and then when you hit it offline, it only goes a few yards offline. Like my father, at 71 years old now, just is swinging so slow compared to what he used to that the guy couldn't miss a fairway if he tried.
Well, I'm still able to get it. Let's see. The other day, Josh will like this. I was playing out Las Colinas.
Here we go.
Number 5. Okay, 510 yards or so. Driver 7-iron.
That's a nice little poke out there.
I was 30 yards past the tree.
It wasn't downwind or anything, was it?
It was a little downwind.
Okay, because there's. I'm sorry, Gene. I know you hit the center of the club face often, and that in itself is going to get you distance.
That's only a 330-yard drive, Adam. Well, Adam, it is so fun to see you. And someday I'm going to get out to Southern California and physically see you in person and get to talk and get to see that little baby and all the other good things. Say hi to your dad and your mom.
I absolutely will. Gene and Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure. And Gene, it's been a privilege to be on here with you. I love you. And, Josh, you're a new friend. Gene's an old one and someone that I consider family, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
And we're going to, for our listeners, on the bottom of our information on the podcast, there'll be all kinds of information about how to find Adam and get in contact with him. Again, I still watch Adam's videos. I sometimes laugh because I know what he's going to say before he says it.
Yeah. Yep.
But
that's right.
Fantastic teacher, fantastic information. And just, I would encourage you to go there. And if you want to go further and hook up with him, he's got, again, he can help you. If he could help me, he can help anybody.
I appreciate that, Gene. I love what I do. I'm very lucky.
And Josh, you look like it's getting dark there. Adam, it's getting dark there.
It's a little bit dark where we're at. I do want to say thank you to Adam for being on here today. It was an absolute pleasure. I'm grateful and blessed to just be on here talking about what I love and what is just as much as a passion to it is me as it is to Adam, as it is to Gene, and hopefully to some of our listeners as well. And there's a lot of golden nuggets and gems in this episode, and I cannot wait until it uploads. I'm extremely excited for that. And once again, Adam, thank you for coming on. It was great talking to you. Great sharing our experience with Gene and club fitting, because this is what it's all about, sharing our experiences and learning from each other. And I think golfers especially can learn so much from each other, whether you're a 15 handicap or even a +5 handicap. There's always stuff you can learn from each other, and that's the ultimate goal, is to share the proper information and the truth. And that's the number one thing we're trying to do here. So Adam, once again, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it, guys. I mean, I learned something today too. I learned there's a type of face my boys could be using with their driver that might give them a little more life. Always learning something, guys. Always learning something. There you
go. Well, God bless. And again, say hi to everybody back there and stay dry.
See you all in the next episode.
I appreciate it, guys.
God bless. Take care.